at that point you were deciding to go into Afghanistan. Did you speak with Hamid Gul about it? Did he help you with the logistics of getting into Afghanistan, or did you manage that some other on your own?
No, I didn't decide on the plan to go into Afghanistan until
Okay.
a week later. But I did say to him that I wanted to go, and he said, "Well, go to the embassy and ask for a visa." And I did. And they looked at me with incredulity when I asked for a visa. And they said, "Why do you want to go into Afghanistan?" And I said, "Well, I'd like to get all sides of a story that I'm writing." And anyway, they refused me. They weren't interested.
So what happened next then? How did you then decide to, logistically, how did you prepare to go into Afghanistan?
Well, again, I said to Pasha, we've got to come up with a really big story this weekend. And the only one that I can think of is if I get into Afghanistan, or if I get into a training camp, an Al Qaeda training camp in the mountains in Pakistan. And he said, "Let me think about it." And off he went. And then the next day he said to me, "I can get you into Afghanistan. I have 2 very reliable guides who I trust and I know, and they will see that you get in and out safely." He said, "Going to the mountains is something different. I don't know these people. I am not entirely certain that I can protect
As
you."
Afghanistan situation was at the time, I think it was a safer decision than going into the mountains in Pakistan at that time.
Well, it turned out to be a very good call, because while I was looking at this, so was another journalist, Daniel Pearl from the Wall Street Journal. And he went into the training camp that I was going to go into. So, yes, it was
so sad, wasn't it?
a good call.
Daniel got killed in,
Tragic.
Are you in touch with Pasha?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely tragic. And, there but for the grace of God. And so, as it turned out, even with hindsight, it was still the best option to go into Afghanistan. And that's something that that weighs heavily on me at times. What if? I mean, we all look back at our lives and say, what if? And I honestly don't think that we would be doing this interview today had I gone for the Kashmiri training camp run by Al Qaeda.
I think you're right. Did you ever subsequently get in touch with Pasha? Did you have his contact details? Oh, wow.
We keep in touch now and again. And
Pasha, if you're watching this video, leave a comment.
Well, just, salam alaikum, and thank you for all the work that you did do. And, he's wasted as a taxi driver. He was so knowledgeable, and everything that a journalist could want in a fixer and a guide. He was great. And he also had a tremendous news sense. He came up with the idea that we should go to a place called Dera Adam Keel, And we got there, it was like a one-horse town, and the front street was lined with little engineering workshops, and people were producing Kalashnikovs. And it was this man tried to sell me a Kalashnikov.
Handmade weapons industry in the world to this day. It is amazing the skills they have.
They could make anything. And they had Chinese weapons. They had the Kalashnikovs. This is what I love about Pakistan, is the people there have a real can-do attitude. They can make something, they can mend something, they can copy something. There is nothing that they can't do if they put their mind to it. And with this sort of attitude, Pakistan should be high in the world today as one of the most productive countries.
If they get the right conditions,
unfortunately,
stability and
there's just this brilliant workforce there that has this can-do attitude.
When it will grow exponentially once the timing is right, with conditions, the economy, the government, and.
So I was looking at this Kalashnikov, and this man said, "I'll sell it to you for $50." And I said, "All right." And I'm thinking, how can I get this through Heathrow Customs? And Pasha said to me, "Don't buy it." And I said, "Why?" And he said, after the first 50 bullets, it'll probably break.
He's right.
But what I found out, which was also interesting later, a few weeks down the line, is that as soon as America started its bombing campaign in Afghanistan, as soon as the bombs dropped and exploded, and after everything fell silent, some enterprising Afghanis would go and collect the metal shards from these bombs, take them to this workshop that I'd been to. They would be melted down and repurposed as
absolutely right.
Kalashnikovs to use on the Americans. So actually, the Americans were often fighting their own weapons.
I think this is exactly the same kind of thing that's going on in Gaza at the moment.
Yes, well, Gaza is one of, from a recycling and environmentally friendly point of view, Gaza is probably a world leader, because nothing gets wasted. Everything has a value, everything is repurposed and recycled, and we can learn a great deal from these pockets of poverty. And
Gaza apparently by population is one of the most educated places in the world. They have the highest number per capita of graduates anywhere in the world, apparently.
Oh, Gaza. Well, something that you wouldn't dare say on mainstream media, but when it comes to intellect, there's probably no higher intellect in a political group than the Hamas government. They've all got doctorates. Even I would bet that the leaders in the Al-Qassam brigades have all got doctorates and master's degrees.
It's the same with, if we look at the Iranian president now, he's a doctor. I mean, this is the thing. We look down on these nations and think of them as backwards, but the intellectual talent they have that's constantly coming up to the surface at the top. And if you compare that to our politicians and our what have they achieved other than the politics that they've been involved in, outside of that ivory tower? They don't necessarily, many times they don't have practical experience, knowledge, which is why there is that disconnect between our politicians and our people.
Well, I think that, I mean, if you look at the first 1,000 years of Islam, if the Nobel prizes for science and maths and physics were available from the inception of Islam, most of the Nobel prizes would have gone to Muslims, because up until the 17th century, they were world leaders in science, in physics, in astrology, in medicine, geometry, trigonometry, all of these mathematical geniuses relied on what the Muslims brought to the table in those early years. It's quite astonishing
Also,
and
Al-Azhar University,
incredible.
which was made over 1,000 years ago, one of the first universities in the world. I understand that the first head of that university was actually a female, whereas in Oxford, Cambridge, until even 50 years, 100 years ago, we couldn't have female students entering as a student, Cambridge or Oxford. So there's a lot that we can learn from each other, I think.
Well, absolutely. You know, when it comes to Sharia finance, the Western banks are left behind, but the Arab banks are world leaders, because, you know, they employ a lot of women who could run circles around the men in Wall Street and the Square Mile in London when it comes to Sharia compliant finance. It's really fascinating. And I think it was the 1940s before there was a woman appointed as a bank manager. The first
Wow,
Western female bank manager. It was, I think, the 1940s or the
no,
1950s.